Hi everyone, I hope you're well. Today I'm at Buildwas Abbey in Shropshire, obviously my neck of the woods. It's a fantastic place. There's some stunning vaulted ceilings here that I've taken photographs of over the years. Obviously they haven't changed, but I just love taking photographs of them. But I thought I'd start a few videos about the value of coins, because as you know, I love history, I love local history, and as you've seen from my channel, I like metal detecting. And I really get into coins and like the economy, because as you know, I like politics. And I like to know the value of things and how things have changed over the years. So for instance, you know, a penny can't get you very much these days. I mean, back when I was a kid, you used to be able to get wampy chews, 1 pence chews, if you're an American, not wampy, but we used to call them wampy chews, 1p, anyway. And a wampy chew is basically like a chewit, and you'd buy them singly, individually in the shop for 1 penny. But then anyway, and my mom always used to joke that one of the biggest scams going was when in Britain they got scrapped the half p, and they just basically got rid of that coin altogether. And when she was a kid, all the 1p chews were half p chews, and then overnight they all doubled in value, or doubled in price, sorry. So so yeah, I'm quite interested in coins and pennies, and the economy and how things work. So anyway, this abbey, Buildwas Abbey, was built in 1135. It's a Cistercian abbey, and I believe it was active right the way up until the Reformation, when it was obviously left like this. And then, but the history goes back much further. There's actually records show that Lady Aelfled, some of you might know, who's one of my favourite characters in history, when she was essentially ruler of Mercia, Queen of Mercia, although she wasn't technically a queen, she actually organised the funding of a church in this area. And we know from the Venerable Bede that the Vikings were in this area. So it was a pretty significant religious site. And obviously people, if the Vikings were about here mooching around, there must have been money and land and other things they wanted. So it was a good place to put an abbey. It's also a relatively secure place because you've got a river down there, you've got hills around you. I imagine back in the day, as abbeys go, it was fairly easily defendable, and I'm pretty sure there's no evidence of any of the churches and stuff that were like raided and stuff early on. Just to point out, obviously the 11th century, nothing to do with the Vikings, but there undoubtedly probably was something here well before that, even if it was a little wooden Saxon church, or maybe the little wooden Saxon church was over that way where the actual village of Buildwas is. So anyway, we're going to go have a mooch around, and then I'm going to talk about pennies. Trying not to spoil this for you. Here goes. How amazing is that? It is one of my favourite architectural, archaeological places in Shropshire. It is absolutely stunning, and this footage does not do it justice. It was only a few years ago that you could actually walk on these tiles. I'm quite happy that you're not allowed to anymore, because they are absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. And you can almost see over the years where different ones have been repaired and replaced. I'm not a ceramics expert, and I'm certainly not a historical ceramics expert, but even I can tell the difference between very old medieval tiles and then more recent ones. The glazing and the detail as technology advanced. I always wonder by the graffiti, how old is it? I've been to some places and you see graffiti that's scratched in and it's like 1550 or something. And you think, yeah, People were carving their name into stuff long before it was all on the news. See all these things, don't you, about people going to the Colosseum and carving their name in it. And it's wrong, you shouldn't do it, it's absolutely disgraceful. But when you go into some place and you see that in 1791, Dave scratched his name into a wall. Yeah, humans have been scratching their names on walls forever. And I oddly quite looking at walls to see if you can find something, just a little hint of the past. It's just the cut marks, isn't it? Look. Someone's hand has cut that. Oh. It's got a good echo too. It's absolutely stunning, isn't it? So, should we get back onto the subject of pennies? Yeah, so as you know, as we've touched on with metal detecting and you come across coins, I always thought to myself, how annoyed was the person who lost this coin? Because I get pretty annoyed when I just lose £2, and £2 can't buy you a lot these days. I mean, can barely buy you half a pint. So, well, Londoners are probably saying, barely get a sip of a pint of that lad. But round here, you can still just about get half a pint for £2. Anyway, I digress. So when you go metal detecting and you find a hammered coin, let's say from John the First, was it 1214, Runnymede and all that kind of era? I think it's a good era to pick because a lot of people know about that era because of Magna Carta and obviously myths and legends around Robin Hood and bad Prince John and all the rest of it. So back then, a penny would have been probably somewhere between 30 and £50 in today's money and value. And a skilled labourer would maybe only get paid a couple of pence a day. And a penny was kind of what you needed to sustain life. It was enough to buy bread, possibly pay some of your debts to your rent and everything else for that day and a bit to put aside. And you think to yourself, well, how could they put bits aside and buy bread and other such things? Well, what happened was that they cut them up. And that's why we get cut hammers and cut quarters and cut halves, because you cut a penny in half, you get half a penny. You cut a penny in quarters, you don't get a quarter, Americans, you get a farthing, because a farthing in English means 4 things. So a coin cut into quarters was 4 things, a farthing, not a quarter. Interesting, isn't it? Could you imagine though? So you've had a day out labouring in a field as a farm labourer, and you've been paid your penny, your shiny, long cross, short cross penny, whichever area you were in, and you get to the pub that evening and you want to pay your tab, and you realise your penny's not in your purse because a wee mouse has nibbled a hole in it, and there's a hole in your pocket, and you've done a whole day's work for absolutely nothing. But not only that, no one's going to take pity on you. Still got to eat your bread, still got to pay your rent, pay your dues. So you could be toast. That could be, I mean, look at today. What would it be like today for you to just lose a day's wages out of your pocket? My God, I mean, I suppose if you're Jeff Bezos, it's fine. You might lose a couple of mil, but a couple of mil? I'd like to know actually how much money Jeff Bezos does make in a day. There's me going a couple of mil a day. Tell you what, when I get home, I'll fact check that and I'll put the actual amount up here. I think Jeff Bezos makes 2 million a day. What's the truth? But yeah, so could you imagine that, losing a day's wages? It would be absolutely mortifying. So whenever you go metal detecting and you find one of those, a single penny in a field from the essentially the early medieval period, just remember that that probably seriously affected someone's life, losing that penny. That would be the probably equivalent of day of walking down the street and finding a crisp £50 note or a $100 bill. I mean, the way the American economy is going down, that could change at the moment. But you, as of making this video, that's roughly the exchange rate. So it's interesting. I don't know if that's a geeky thing. I don't know if that's me, but I do find how money and people's perception of money through history and coinage really tells a story into the past. And I think we can kind of almost learn lessons from it and take it into today. And you know, maybe all of us should start equating our time and energy into a daily rate, and then maybe we wouldn't, you know, waste hours on social media watching videos of English guys walking around Sistine monasteries. Abbeys, sorry. But anyway, if you're coming to Shropshire and you're nearby, please come and check this place out, because it's one of my favourite places and I think you'll absolutely love it. Never had that before at a National Trust or English Heritage. A guy over there who's he just come up to me and said, just stood and stared at me, and I went, hello. And he just stared at me. I went, hello again. And he went, you filming for personal reasons? Yeah. Oh, that's all right then. And he walks off. Very strange. Never happened to me in 20 years of walking around and filming and taking photos of National Trust and English Heritage places. How strange. I tell you what, aren't some old people strange? I mean, that guy, it's really weird. I mean, I'm clearly not a professional like the BBC here. I'm a guy walking around with a smartphone and a tripod. That's fair enough. He asked his job. That's cool. But it's just the way he kind of just stood and stared at me. And after I said, hello, you're right, he just carried on staring. And it's like, do you want to make, you know, hello? Would you like to tell me why you're staring at me? And then afterwards he tells me. It's just odd. I'm steaming up here. Steaming up. Oh, it's so warm. And then I just found a key ring. No key on it, just a fob. Obviously, so dropped off someone's keys. And there's only one other person in there other than the person who's running it. And so the guy's walking towards me and I picked it up and I go, and again, this guy's about 60 and I went, excuse me, mate, you haven't dropped a key fob, have you? The look on his face, it was like I just pulled down my pants and just pooed on the floor in front of him. It's like, no. Okay. Would have been just a lot easier to just go, no, it's not mine, mate. Anyway, I suppose it's warm and we should give people the benefit of the doubt, shouldn't we? But crikey, how bizarre. So folks, I might have told a porky pie in the last one, because I said there might have been an older church here, but that was because a local historian ages ago told me that this was built on an older site, and that did happen sometimes with churches, that when they were redeveloped, because this was actually built, this building, in 1720, so obviously a lot after the medieval period. But a lot of times, especially with the Victorians or before that with the Industrial Revolution, when people had money and they wanted to, I don't know, a bit unlike today, give something back to the community rather than hoard wealth like a dragon, they would invest. And normally they do that by investing in their future in heaven, which was build a church. So yeah, and when they did that, sometimes they'd knock down an older church and renovate it. If you remember from my last video, we were at Lillishall. Some people said, it's not called Lillishall Church, it's called St Michael's or this, that and the other. And it's like, well, it's a church in Lillishall, so I call it Lillishall Church, because as with a lot of churches, the saints change over the years as the religion changes. And I believe that church originally was called Leela's Church, and then after that possibly St Chad's, but I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. Anyway, so yeah, what had tend to happen was sometimes is they would take down an older church or an older sacred site and they build a church there, but I can't find any information on that, whether it's true or not. So maybe this wasn't a sacred site, but obviously just over there about a mile is obviously where we've just been with the Abbey. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that there wasn't an older site here, but you never know. That is such a cool key. Oh, yeah, so I've just had a really lovely talk with the church warden, and she's given me a load of information about this church. And I was right, it was built on the site of a previous church, because the sign outside does actually say rebuilt in 1720. Now, they're not quite sure how old the previous church was. Obviously in 1720, I don't think there's any sketches or anything of it, but they do think that they reused some of the old bits in this church. And she was telling me that this was a daughter church from the Abbey, which was over there. And basically there was, over the river, there was a ford or a crossing, possibly a punt or something, and it was to ferry people from the church to the Abbey. So yes, this more than likely, or is, a much older site than 1720, although the building isn't. But this door, they were saying they believe, came from the Abbey and was repurposed. And at some point it's had the locks changed. And the warden was telling me that the door basically needed oiling and it was in a very bad state. And when they oiled it, it actually found, these didn't show up before, all the carpenter's marks. And you can see the detail they've done to put those nails in. They are geometrically perfect diagonals, and you can still see the pencil marks. So at some point this door was repurposed, and I think it was from the Abbey. It is a very cool place. Now, I would love to know what that was, and I did actually forget to ask because we had such a good conversation. But that looks very old. Right in the doorway to the church. And the pulpit, I think they're called a pulpit. They believe that this is Jacobean, and the carving on it is absolutely fantastic. Look at these swirly S's. If you see my artwork, you know I love a good swirl. I thought that was quite interesting as well, look. The almost the Sistine archway like you'd find in the Abbey. Absolutely amazing.
There's a lot of it up here as well.
You just see where they've obviously just been bored, scratching.
Yeah. Because if they're sitting here, the handle's there for pumping the organ. So they're out of the view of the organist, they're out of the view of the priest. The only person that might see them is some choristers, and they're not going to care.
Just had a really lovely conversation with the lady, and she had so much information. And if ever you come to a church and you find the person who looks after them then have a chat with them if they want to have a chat with you, because they do a fantastic job. And even if you're not a religious person, I always love churches, and I've said this before, because it's one of the places that you can see true, like, working class craftsmanship. A lot of it is long gone, and obviously these places were built by the rich. And whatever take you've got on religion, whether it was to help people or whether it's to make other people rich, that's fine. But they were often built by working class people earning a penny a day to do some amazing craft work. And it's just fantastic. Now, some of this church, I was told as well, was redone again in the 1800s. They had this, I think it's called the chancel. I'm really bad with my church terminology. I need a degree in architecture. But these are little cool. These are these little finials. And they were Victorian ones. But if you look, they've been carved in the same style as the medieval ones. Real attention to detail in absolutely everything. Just stunning. Absolutely stunning. Not many places now where you can go and you can see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800-year-old craftsmanship in your local area. But you can in a church. And churches need help, right? Because they're falling down. And this one in particular is in disrepair. And I'm going to put a QR code up and you can look for the history yourself, and you can maybe send them some money if you want to. I will be back at a later date and I will be putting a £5 in the box, because I think we should look after these places, even though I'm not religious. And I think it's a crying shame that the Church of England doesn't look after these places. You have to remember that the Church of England is one of the, if not the biggest landowner in Great Britain. It's one of the wealthiest organisations, and it's has all these amazing historical buildings full of working class craftsmanship, and yet they don't put their hand in their pocket to help look after them. And that's a shame. Now, the church has been in the news a lot lately, and they could do with some good press and some good PR. So whoever the next Archbishop of Canterbury is, I suggest you do everyone a favour, because let's be honest, you could do with some good PR. So how about put your hand in your pocket and you get the church to repair some of these really old buildings that essentially are some of the last museums for working class craftsmanship. Because once they're gone, and we'll never get them back. And you own these buildings, and they've done you in good stead over the years, haven't they? I mean, some of these places, you've had 400 or 500 years worth of revenue from your parishioners. So how about you start putting a little bit more back? Hi folks, so there you have it. We've had an interesting day learning about history and pennies around Buildwas. Hello, Mr. Hoverfly. And so next time you're out and about, maybe you're a metal detectorist and you find a hammered coin, a little penny, or maybe next time you see one in a museum and you think to yourself, wow, I wonder how annoyed that person was to lose their penny. You can think to yourself, well, I wonder if it was a poor stonemason who had had a day's graft on a church. He put in all the effort carving away to earn his daily bread, and on his walk home across the fields over the river to go and see his wife and kids and pick up their tea on the way home, he went in his pocket and he realised he'd lost a whole day's pay. Now, can you imagine that conversation? Absolutely delightful. It was so nice, and it's really restored my faith in humanity, because after the 2 miserable farts down at the Abbey, this lady was absolutely wonderful. She had so much information. We chatted about everything. We chatted about our beliefs, we chatted about church, we chatted about politics, the works, and it was so nice and friendly, and we even had opposing views on a few things. And you know what I mean? It was just so wonderful to have a proper nice conversation with somebody and it not dissolve into like anarchy, I suppose. But we were talking actually and saying how maybe this is what churches were really for. Maybe this is the original origins of a church was really supposed to be where people come together and discuss, and then maybe as religion developed it become more authoritarian. It was a really nice conversation we had. We talked about nature, we talked about the church's role in nature, nature's role in religion. Oh, it was wonderful. And I was given a little QR code. I have taken a little video of this, so it might be able to scan it better, but I'll pop that up. And basically you can do the church's guided tour online, so they probably have a lot more information than me. So please go check them out. Until next time, take care. Speak soon.